As a child, I was fascinated by boundaries. I studied the globe in my room. I wondered, why did some states and nations have straight edges and other ones had jagged lines? Why was a boundary drawn here and not there? And later, I was seduced by the idea of explorers, filling in the blank spaces on the maps. Now, where I grew up, every single street had a sidewalk. And so I loved Shel Silverstein's poem, Where the Sidewalk Ends. There's a place where the sidewalk ends and before the street begins, and there the grass grows cool and white, and there the sun burns crimson bright. Let us leave this place where the smoke blows black and the dark street winds and bends, and watch where the chalk-white arrows go to the place where the sidewalk ends. The very concept that there could be a place where the sidewalk ended was enticing and mysterious and dangerous. Was the end of the sidewalk a warning or perhaps an invitation? Was it okay to go there? We've entered a new chapter here at Temple Israel. As part of this new chapter, we've explored the boundaries of our community in so many ways. And we've expanded the boundaries of our community. As of last January, we, your clergy, now have the honor of being able to officiate at a Jewish wedding for an interfaith couple. This is a congregation actively opening its doors for those seeking to participate in Jewish life. This is a community that welcomes family of every variation into our midst. I've officiated at 2 memorable Jewish weddings for interfaith couples in the recent months, and I look forward to many more in the years to come. We have moved our worship outside the walls of this building. Hundreds of you have joined us as we've taken our Shabbat to Campo Beach or outside to our lawn for Shabbat under the stars. In each location, we've taken advantage of the unique setting that nature affords us to pause, slow down, consider our lives, and connect with one another. We've begun to expand the boundaries of Jewish education as well. We've implemented an online learning curriculum in 4th grade. And in each of the past 3 years, our high school youth have embarked on social justice trips to New Orleans, San Francisco, and Atlanta. Now, I am certainly aware that religion has gotten a very bad name because all too often it has been used to impose requirements and strictures. It's been used to limit, to exclude, to build up walls between people. That does not describe the Judaism that we live here at Temple Israel. This is a congregation that challenges us to expand our boundaries with authenticity and with creativity. I recognize that some of what we've done this year or some of the changes that were made in past years has made some of us a little uncomfortable. Exploring where the sidewalk ends is inherently unsettling. But a little discomfort is also very Jewish. In good ways, our tradition has always reimagined itself whenever necessary. That has been the key to its endurance. So at these high holidays, the core of these days is that we mark an opportunity to take account of our lives. Starting tonight, we're asked to assess the path that we've traveled. If, looking back on the year, we aren't a little uncomfortable, then we're just not looking closely enough. It's up to each of us to determine where we stand in relation to the goals we've set and to figure out where we want to go in the year ahead. Tonight, I'd like to speak about a way in which each of us can grow. Each of us has what we can call an ethical comfort zone. And beyond that zone lie our personal ethical boundaries. Just as I am proud that this congregation has begun to expand its boundaries, I'm also proud that over the years, we have expanded our own ethical margins too. In so many ways, our lives are not bounded as they once were. The boundaries of communication and social interaction, of geography, gender, and politics, they've all fallen or at least been blurred. Many behaviors that were once considered unacceptable are now seen as normative. We can recall a time when single motherhood, or interracial couples, or tattoos were all considered taboo. When I was in high school, it was definitely not okay to be openly gay. But it's also remarkable to note how far we've come in such a short time. I officiated my first same-sex wedding in 2007. And we watched over the past 10 years as same-sex marriage was legalized, first in just a handful of states, and then more year by year. And this Rosh Hashanah, we celebrate the fact that marriage equality is now a recognized constitutional right in all 50 states. This is just one example of how, over the years, we've grown as individuals and as a society. We've grown by expanding our ethical boundaries bit by bit. Thank God we have come so far. Now, without question, one of the most extraordinary stories of this year has been Caitlyn Jenner. Her very public, unapologetic transformation from Olympic gold medalist Bruce, the very epitome of masculinity, into fashionable, coiffed Caitlyn. As we watched her transition from man to woman, we were certainly intrigued and possibly a little bit mystified. And personally, I can tell you that watching it all made me a bit uneasy. And for that, I am sorry. Jenner is made in the image of God, as we all are. And thus, I'm also proud of her. By using her public platform, she has forced us to grapple with the acceptance of, or perhaps our resistance to, transgender identity. It's a topic that many of us would have preferred to comfortably ignore for many more years. But because of Caitlyn, I was pushed to reconsider my notions of gender and sexuality. And this is a space of productive discomfort. She prompted us to broaden what we consider the normative range of human experience. And I think there's great value in that. Rabbi Eliyahu Destler was a 20th century Jewish philosopher. He was influenced by the teachings of the Musar movement. Now, that was a movement of rabbis who sought to focus intensely on personal behavior and ethical choices. Destler wrote about ethical decisions using the imagery of modern warfare. He wrote, "When two armies are locked in battle, the place where the struggle takes place is the front line. On either side of the front line, there's territory that belongs to one side or the other, and thus that's not the location of the battle. The front itself moves and changes day by day, but the struggle occurs only where the two sides meet." Now, our ethical choices can be thought of in a similar way. There are decisions that we've made so many times that they're no longer decisions. It's obvious to us that we will respond in certain ways to certain events. These choices are within our territory. The place of ethical decision is the front line. That's the point where our values come into conflict, and thus the choices are not obvious. Each individual's ethical decision point is unique. It moves forward or back as we grow and change and mature. By recognizing the ethical decision points that we face, we are able to set our sights on expanding our moral territory and thus becoming better people. We make ethical decisions every day, most of them without thinking. So too, each of us has an ethical decision point. That's the crucial juncture where we encounter something that unsettles us. It's where we wrestle with our assumptions and our ingrained patterns. It's the space in which we ask ourselves, what is the right thing to do here? Rabbi Destler illustrates his point by using the example of one who is raised to be a thief. For him, stealing is not an ethical decision point. He does it all the time, and therefore it is firmly within his territory. But the thief may face an ethical decision point when he is finally nabbed in the act of robbery. Should he shoot his way out? For him, that is the ethical choice. We are not thieves, but the same is true for each of us. There are ethical decisions with which we are very comfortable, and there are crucial decisions that lie at our decision point. In fact, each of us has expanded our personal ethical boundary probably more times than we can count. Perhaps that decision point was forced upon you the first time you met a gay classmate or colleague. Perhaps you embraced that decision point when you decided to volunteer on a regular basis at the Gillespie House or another soup kitchen. And sometimes it takes being thrust into an unexpected situation to learn where our decision point lies. As we know, on May 12th of this year, 2 young men entered Temple Israel with the intention of protesting a Friends of the IDF event. Within moments, our executive director, Lisa Goldberg, our director of member engagement, Brian Bierman, our cantor, Dan Sklar, and our assistant rabbi, PJ Schwartz, took action. They confronted the intruders without any hesitation, physically subduing them, tackling them to the ground, restraining them until police arrived, and they did all of this without any consideration of whether they were putting themselves in danger. Their immediate action demonstrated that for them, this was no decision at all. Protecting this synagogue and the people inside its walls lay firmly within their ethical territory. For that, we are not only profoundly grateful, we are deeply proud. And there are other times, if we choose, that we can intentionally expand our ethical boundaries. When I was living in Manhattan, I was troubled by people asking for money on the sidewalk and on the subway. Each time I was approached, I would wonder, should I give this person money? Will he really use it for food, or might he buy cigarettes or alcohol? Is this woman's story about her sick child really true, or is she making it up? If I decided I was feeling generous, I would dig around in my pockets for some change, and sometimes I would find some, but other times I wouldn't, and I would probably sheepishly shrug as if to say, at least I tried. And that was a cop-out, to be sure. Sometimes if I knew that I had a single in my wallet, I would discreetly take it out and give it over. But if I wasn't sure, I wouldn't risk taking out my wallet and finding only a 5 or, God forbid, a 20. Eventually, I made a decision. 2 decisions, actually. First, I decided that I was going to follow the teaching of Rabbi Chaim of Sanz. He said, better to give to 100 beggars who do not need the money than to reject just one who does. So I decided I would give to absolutely everyone who asked. I went to the bank, I got $20 in singles. And I carried those bills around with me wherever I went, and that way I always knew that I had $1 to give to anyone who asked. The $20 or so that I would go through each month, didn't make that much of a difference to my bank account. But the knowledge that I had given to everyone who asked removed a persistent ethical dilemma from my soul. Every one of us has a story like this. Every one of us once struggled with a difficult question. Every one of us once took on a personal practice or habit that was difficult, but that moved us forward. It might not have had anything to do with giving tzedakah, but think for a moment tonight, what did it feel like when you grappled with an ethical decision? What helped resolve the conflict within you? How did you move forward? A friend of mine and his wife decided to fulfill the mitzvah of giving 10% of their post-tax income to tzedakah. They were already generous people, to be sure, but at the same time, 10% was a very lofty goal, as it would be for any of us. But wisely, they started slowly, giving just a little bit more each year. And little by little, they inched their decision point forward. Before they knew it, getting to 10% didn't seem like such a big step at all. My friends saw they'd made at least a little impact when, years later, their now-grown son earned his first paycheck and called to ask, "Is it 10% of net or 10% of gross?" So think for a moment. What are you presently comfortable with ethically? Good for you. I applaud that you know the answer. But then I'd also ask, what's next? What ethical decision might you take on? What are you struggling with right now? What's currently outside your comfort zone, and what would help advance your territory forward? Undertaking this task will mean different things for different people. There are those in our congregation who devote considerable time and talents to educational programs in Bridgeport. There are families who, instead of giving gifts one night of Hanukkah, together allocate tzedakah to various different charities. There are neighbors who have begun composting or purchased electric cars. We have friends who have visited the developing world and spent time in slums, getting to know people who live on the equivalent of less than $1 a day. Where do you stand in the national conversation about immigration? Whatever you give to tzedakah, could you commit to giving just a little bit more? Where is your ethical comfort zone, and where are your boundaries? Discomfort is essential to these days of all. If we remain where we're comfortable, we will never grow. Who we are today is not who we want to be tomorrow, and Rosh Hashanah is that opportunity to expand or test our boundaries. Tonight, we assess where we stand and we push ourselves to the next ethical challenge. That is the only way we can become what we yearn to be. When asked if he followed certain commandments, Jewish philosopher Franz Rosenzweig offered the wry answer, "Not yet." Well, we all have a not yet, don't we? We're doing a lot, but we could be doing more. We're doing plenty and yet not enough. There is a Jewish urgency to reject complacency. So tonight, I ask, where does your sidewalk end? Where are the blank spaces on your map? What's next for you? As this new year begins, let's explore together. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May it be so.
About 10 years ago, a family discussion left an indelible impression upon me. Discussion's a bit kind. It was a rather heated debate. Still too kind, but we'll leave it at that. You may have these debates around your own kitchen table. In my family, in my extended family, no fair guessing, you won't know who it is. In our family, we tend to gravitate to the lightning rod issue, and this particular evening, we got onto the topic of gay rights. and equal rights for the broader LGBT community. At the argument's crescendo, the family member who can shout down any and all opposition, you all have one, he finally said to me rather glaringly, "You're not gay. Why do you even care?" An ethical boundary. In my mind, I could hear the words of the famous poem, "First They Came," by German pastor Martin Niemöller, but I was intimidated. I was shouted into submission. When I reflect upon the year 2015, I am indeed heartened that there has been something of a sea change in this country. Composer Andrew Lippa, who we hosted in this very social hall last November, he presciently wrote an oratorio based on the life of Harvey Milk. It was performed to a standing room only crowd at Avery Fisher Hall on October 6, 2014, the very same day the Supreme Court cleared the way for legalized same-sex marriage in 5 more states, including Utah and Oklahoma. The crowd was electric, and Andrew captured a moment. In this landmark work, he describes the feeling of the first openly gay elected public official in California in a song that captures the zeitgeist of 2015 as aptly as it describes Harvey Milk's successful campaign for city supervisor in 1977. It's a rally and cry for all of us, and it commands us to recognize an important milestone. You are here. First gay man, elected to first gay man, elected to I'm that man, elected to gay and Jew, Jew and gay. What will the Pope do? What would my mom say about the first gay man? Elected to represent, expected to change and cope, climb a rope, face that slope, give them hope. I'm the one they've trusted, so I'll just do what I told them I would do. I'll barrel through, and standing here in City Hall, all dripping justice wall to wall, I recall that sticker on the map that says, that screams, that calls out to everyone. You are here, you are here, you are standing when they told you you would fall, you would fail, you would feel the crush. But you're here, you are here, and the old you can't believe it's coming true. But it's you, and without a doubt, you are here. It's here within these palace walls where we had once been barred. Here within these hallowed halls, we enter proud and scarred. Some may threaten, some misquote, some may need to clear their throat, but we won the final vote. So cheer, this is our year, and you are here, you are here. You are walking when they told you you should crawl, you should cry, you should be ashamed. But you're here, you are here, you have triumphed through the fire and the cold. So behold, you are here, and you are now, you are why, and you are how. You are when, and you are then, and you are